Hello dear students, we are starting with the new chapter called Bacterial Photosynthesis. So bacterial photosynthesis, up till now we have studied about the photosynthesis. Okay, in your previous classes you might have heard about the photosynthesis, that plant perform the photosynthesis reaction. They convert the light energy into the chemical and produce the carbohydrates and stuff. But bacteria also perform the photosynthesis that we are going to see in this chapter called as bacterial photosynthesis. Okay, so how bacteria perform photosynthesis, what machinery they use for performing photosynthesis, what pathway they use to perform the photosynthesis, that all we are going to study under the chapter called as bacterial photosynthesis. So your first point in this chapter is habitat and examples of photosynthetic bacteria. This point we are going to divide in our 2 lectures. Okay, so this is the first lecture for this point called habitat and examples of photosynthetic bacteria. Habitat means where they live. Okay, their living area called as the habitat. Let's understand general concept of photosynthesis. As we all know that photosynthesis is conversion of light energy into the chemical energy and form the ATP. That is the simple definition of photosynthesis, conversion of light energy into chemical energy and generation of energy in the form of ATP. Now prokaryotes that can also convert the light energy into chemical energy. Okay, prokaryotes or bacteria, they can also convert this light energy into chemical energy and produce the energy. Okay, so what are that bacteria? What are the examples of photosynthetic bacteria? The bacteria which perform photosynthesis is known as bacterial photosynthesis. Okay, so examples include like examples of photosynthetic bacteria include Cyanobacteria, purple bacteria, green sulfur bacteria, purple sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria, halobacteria, etc. So these are the examples of bacteria which can perform the photosynthesis by using different machinery, by using different apparatus. Okay, so that all points we are going to see in our upcoming lectures. This is the equation or overall reaction of photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis in bacteria, it can be defined as the synthesis of carbohydrates in presence of chlorophyll, sunlight, carbon dioxide from air and oxygen. Okay, so what is photosynthetic in bacteria? It is defined as the synthesis of carbohydrates or synthesis of sugar by using the chlorophyll pigment in presence of sunlight, gaseous like carbon dioxide which is obtained from the air. But in bacteria, oxygen is not produced as a byproduct. Okay, oxygen is not produced as a byproduct in photosynthetic bacteria. Just exceptional cases, cyanobacteria. Means what? Cyanobacteria are able to produce oxygen as a byproduct. But other photosynthetic bacteria like purple sulfur bacteria, green sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria, Rhodosudomonas. So this bacteria, this photosynthetic bacteria are unable to produce oxygen as a byproduct. Means what? They are unable to produce oxygen during photosynthesis reaction. Just exceptional cases, cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is able to produce oxygen in photosynthesis reaction. Okay, so this is about the definition of photosynthetic bacteria or photosynthesis in bacteria. What is that? synthesis of carbohydrates by using the chlorophyll pigment, sunlight and carbon dioxide, and produce a certain metabolite, exceptional cyanobacteria. Okay, cyanobacteria, it does not produce the oxygen, but other photosynthetic bacteria are able to produce the oxygen. Okay, so that is about the photosynthesis in bacteria. So just you have to keep one point in mind, that photosynthetic bacteria use light and chlorophyll pigment for production of carbohydrates, but they do not produce the oxygen. Just cyanobacteria is the exceptional case. It is included under the photosynthetic bacteria and is able to produce the oxygen, but other bacteria like purple bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria, they are not able to produce oxygen as a byproduct. Okay, so this point you have to keep in mind, and it is very important to understand the further concepts. So photosynthetic organisms, they are known as photoautotrophs, which use the sunlight to produce the organic compound, and that process is known as photosynthesis. Then in photosynthesis, inorganic compounds of carbon dioxide, water and sunlight are used by these photoautotrophs. Photoautotrophs means these are the organisms which can perform the photosynthesis. So they use all these products like carbon dioxide, water and sunlight, and produce the glucose, oxygen and water. So photosynthetic organisms, they include plants, algae, euglena and bacteria. So this is general about just photosynthesis. Now what is the classification of this bacteria? This classification is based on the nutritional requirement or energy source. Okay, means why we are studying this classification? Just to understand that these organisms or this bacteria, what they consume or how they grow, what they need to grow. Okay, so that is the classification on the basis of nutritional requirements. So first, all organisms, energy source is there. Two types of energy source are been included: chemical energy source and light energy source. So the organisms which use chemical as an energy source, that are known as chemotrophs. Okay, so the organisms which use chemical compound as an energy source, they are known as chemotrophs. Means they gain energy from the chemical compound. They cannot carry photosynthesis. Okay, so that are the chemotrophs. Opposite is the phototrophs. They use light as a energy source. Okay, so therefore they are known as phototrophs. Photo stands for light. Okay, so they are dependent on the light. And chemotrophs, chemo stands for chemical. So they use chemical compound as an energy source, called as the chemotrophs. Okay, clear? Chemotrophs and phototrophs. Next, chemotrophs are divided into two categories: chemoheterotrophs and chemoautotrophs. Just keep in mind that chemo means chemical. Okay, and photo means light. So here chemoheterotrophs are those organisms which use chemical as an energy source. Okay, they use chemical as an energy source and organic compound as a carbon source. ठीक है, chemoautotrophs क्या है? They use chemical as an energy source and organic compound as a carbon source, that are known as the chemoheterotrophs. What are chemoautotrophs? They use chemical as an energy source. Okay, they can use chemical as an energy source and carbon dioxide as a carbon source, that are known as the chemoautotrophs. Okay, opposite photoheterotrophs and photoautotrophs. In this photoheterotrophs, they can use light as an energy source and organic compound as a carbon source. Photoautotrophs, they can use light as an energy source and carbon dioxide as a carbon source, called as photoautotrophs. Now in chemoheterotrophs, the final electron acceptor is oxygen. Okay, we will see the chemoheterotrophs. In chemoheterotrophs, final electron acceptor is oxygen. Okay, and the examples of this include animals, most fungi, protozoa, and some bacteria. And in some cases, the final electron acceptor is not oxygen. It may be hydrogen, it may be sulfur, it may be hydrogen sulfide, but it is not oxygen. Okay, so the examples of such bacteria include fermentative streptococcus, and inorganic compound, it include electron transport chain. Example is clostridium. Okay, so that is the organisms which cannot evolve oxygen as a final product during photosynthesis process. And this, the photoheterotrophs, example of photoheterotrophs include green non-sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria. This we are going to see in detail. Okay, this all the process, this chart we are going to discuss in detail. And photoautotrophs, they use water to reduce carbon dioxide. Okay, they use water to reduce carbon dioxide, but what is produced, that we will see in our next lectures. Okay, so yes, they can use water to reduce carbon dioxide, and that process is known as oxygenic photosynthesis. Okay, so the question is been asked and answer is also been there. The question is, they can use water to reduce carbon dioxide. If yes, then that process is called as oxygenic photosynthesis. Means what? They will use water and produce oxygen as a byproduct. Therefore, it is known as oxygenic photosynthesis. And the examples are plant, algae, cyanobacteria. And if answer is no, then that process is known as anoxygenic photosynthesis. Means what? In this, oxygen is not produced as a final product in the photosynthesis reaction. Examples are green and purple bacteria. So this is all overview of our organisms, what they do and in which classes they are being included. Let's summarize quickly this all the chart. There is a group of all organisms. So on the basis of energy, they are classified into two groups, or on the basis of the nutritions, they are classified into two groups: chemotrophs and phototrophs. Chemotrophs means they use chemical. Okay, they use chemicals to gain the energy, that is known as chemotrophs, and here they use light to gain energy, that is known as phototrophs. Chemotrophs are further divided into chemoheterotrophs and chemoautotrophs. Chemoheterotrophs, they use chemical as an energy source. Okay, chemo means chemical and heterotrophs means they are depend on the other. So they are depend on the organic compounds. Okay, so here they use chemical as an energy source, organic compound as a carbon source. In chemoautotrophs, they use chemical as an energy source and carbon dioxide as a carbon source. यहाँ पर भी same है, just there is difference in the energy source. Here light is used as a energy source and organic compounds and carbon dioxide is used as a carbon source. Then in chemoheterotrophs, some gives the oxygen as a final electron acceptor, some do not produce the oxygen as a final electron acceptor. So examples are most animals, fungi, protozoa, and some bacteria which can produce oxygen as a final electron acceptor, and some are unable to produce oxygen as a final electron acceptors. Okay, so they include the streptococcus and our etc chain is there. Okay, here final electron acceptor is oxygen in etc. Okay, so and it produces the energy, it produces the ATP. Then chemoautotrophs, examples are hydrogen, sulfur, iron, nitrogen, carbon monoxide, oxidizing bacteria. Then here photoheterotrophs, examples are been there: green non-sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria. And in photoautotrophs there are two processes, oxygenic and anoxygenic. So this chart we are going to discuss in detail, that is oxygenic photosynthesis and anoxygenic photosynthesis. Actually how it is been performed by the bacteria, that we are going to see in our upcoming lectures. So yes, classification of photosynthetic bacteria into two groups: anoxygenic photosynthetic bacteria and oxygenic photosynthetic bacteria. Now in this lecture we will focus on our first category, that is oxygenic photosynthetic bacteria. As the name indicates, here there is involvement of oxygen. Okay, so here oxygen is produced as a byproduct during photosynthesis reaction. Oxygenic photosynthetic bacteria, they may be unicellular or multicellular and possess the bacteriochlorophyll A instead of simple chlorophyll. Okay, so they possess the bacteriochlorophyll A and they perform the photosynthesis same as that of the plants. तो ऑक्सीडेटिव या फिर ऑक्सीजेनिक फोटोसिंथेटिक बैक्टीरिया, इसका एग्जाम्पल है साइनोबैक्टीरिया. ओके, द एग्जाम्पल ऑफ दिस ऑक्सीजेनिक फोटोसिंथेसिस इज साइनोबैक्टीरिया. दिस इज द फर्स्ट पॉइंट. सेकेंड पॉइंट, they may be unicellular or multicellular. And third point is that they possess the bacteriochlorophyll A instead of normal chlorophyll. What is the difference between this chlorophyll and bacteriochlorophyll? Bacteriochlorophyll A, these are the photosynthetic pigments, okay, which helps in the photosynthesis, same as that of the chlorophyll. Okay, so these are the photosynthetic pigments that occur in the bacteria, and they have the ability to absorb the strong light, strong infrared light. Okay, so that is the bacteriochlorophyll. Then they contain the some light harvesting pigments. Okay, they contain the light harvesting pigments. Now light harvesting pigment means what? Photosynthetic pigments which carry out the photosynthesis, that is known as the light harvesting pigment or photosynthetic pigment. So they contain some photosynthetic pigments like phycobilins, phycoerythrin, which absorbs the carbon dioxide and they can release the oxygen. As I told previously that exceptional is cyanobacteria, which can evolve oxygen as a byproduct during photosynthesis reaction. Okay, so this bacteria absorbs the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and releases the oxygen. Example is cyanobacteria or cyanophyta and prochlorophytes. So these are the examples of oxygenic photosynthesis. Now where actually this process takes place, where this process of photosynthesis takes place, it occurs in the lamellae, in the thylakoids, which contain the chlorophyll A or B and photosynthetic pigment like phycobiliosomes, okay, which use the energy. As I told, this light harvesting pigments, these are the photosynthetic pigments which helps to carry out the photosynthesis. So it is carried out in this lamellae of chloroplast. Okay, so here this process has been carried out. This is the general structure of chloroplast, which contains the outer membrane, inner membrane and intermembrane space. This is the granum. Okay, stack of thylakoids, it is known as the granum. This thylakoids, तो ये जो एक layer है, okay, this single layer is called as the thylakoid and multiple thylakoids are called as the granum, and these thylakoids are connected together by this lumen, sorry not lumen, lamellae. Okay, these thylakoids are connected by the lamellae and inside the thylakoid there is presence of lumen, and the space inside this inside the or outside area of the thylakoid is called as the stroma, okay, which is the fluid part. So this is known as the stroma. This is overall view of chloroplast. Now this oxygenic process or oxygenic photosynthesis, it is carried out in cyanobacteria. और ये जो प्रोसेस है फोटोसिंथेसिस का, जैसे साइनोबैक्टीरिया में होता है, okay, how the process occurs in the cyanobacteria is similar to the process of photosynthesis that takes place in plants. Okay, means I want to tell just one thing, the process of photosynthesis in plants and cyanobacteria is similar in the oxygenic photosynthesis. So that is carried out by two photosystems, PS1 and PS2. Okay, PS stands for photosystems. Photosystem second, this is what is this photosystem? It is a reaction center. फोटोसिस्टम का मतलब क्या है? ये एक रिएक्शन सेंटर है जहां पर रिएक्शंस कैरी आउट होते हैं. ओके, सो फोटोसिस्टम इट इज अ रिएक्शन सेंटर विच इज सराउंडेड बाय सेवरल photosynthetic pigment and in which reaction is being carried out. So photosynthesis 1 and photosynthesis 2. Photosynthesis 2, it generates a proton motive force for making ATP. Okay, so this is involved for the generation of ATP. And photosystem 1, it generates low potential electrons for reducing power. So mainly photosystem 2 is been involved for generation of ATP. And photosystem 1, it is involved in the flow of electrons just to make the compound in the oxidized and in the reduced state. So this is about the oxygenic type of photosynthesis. If we will see the habitat of the cyanobacteria, as the process of plants and cyanobacteria, the process of photosynthesis in plants and cyanobacteria is same. Okay, so cyanobacteria, where they live, where they are being found, they are found in the water, but they can also survive on the land, in rocks, and even in animal shells or in coral parts. Okay, so they are found in the rocks, on the land, and even water. They are also the endosymbiote and can live within the cells or body of another organisms in a mutually beneficial way. Mutually beneficial way means, now they are endosymbiote, means they can live in the other organism also, in the part of the other organism also. And how they live? In the symbiotic association, means here that bacteria is also benefited, और जिसके अंदर वो रह रहा है, that is also been benefited. Okay, so that is the habitat of this cyanobacteria. So these are some diagrams of different strains of cyanobacteria, which is greenish in color. So that was all about the oxygenic photosynthesis, general overview of photosynthesis, what is bacterial photosynthesis, the classification we have discussed. Next we have discussed about the certain terms like photosystems, light harvesting complexes or photosynthetic pigment, and in detail we have shown about the oxygenic photosynthesis. The example is cyanobacteria. In next lecture we will discuss about the anoxygenic photosynthesis. Thank you.